Hi, and welcome to another episode of Coffee Chats with Toby. Please excuse my slug here on the top of my lip. I'm actually partaking in Movember this year, so I know it doesn't look wonderful, but please bear with me. Today, I'm obviously incredibly excited to talk with you guys, so thanks very much for joining me again this morning. Today, what I'm going to go through is something that I find comes up time and time again, especially within clinics, talking more around the rehabilitation space. But what I want you to take from this is that the learnings that I'm going to kind of take you through today is really good foundational knowledge to understand what it is that you're doing with the body and how it is maybe not so much to rehabilitate your body, but prevent the possible need for rehabilitation in the future. So preventing actual injury. What we're talking about is this spectrum or range that each and every one of our joints have. And if you look up and down the body, each joint can be somewhat classified under two categories. And those two categories are a mobility joint versus a stability joint, right? So if we start from our feet and work our way up our body, our ankle we would consider a mobility joint because it has a lot of degrees of motion. So we can flex, we can extend, we can kind of rotate, we can invert. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do within that joint. To take one step up, we have our knees, which we consider stability joints. They really are only designed to work as a hinge and only have really one plane of motion. So they're designed to kind of keep us nice and strong and stable. If we move up towards the hips, again, mobility joints. So ball and socket designed for lots of different range of motion and enables us to move across multiple different planes. Our lower back is a stability joints or a series of stability joints where they're designed to take a lot of load but keep us nice and strong and stable. This kind of goes all the way up our body. So thoracic's a little bit more mobile, or our spine is there's different mobility and stability aspects of our spine. Our shoulders and a mobility joint, our elbows, the stability, etc., etc. What I want to talk to you guys though about is the fact that yes, we have their definitions, but each of those can kind of go through a plane as well. We can have a stability joint that is actually incredibly mobile and doesn't actually have a lot of stability about it. So a lack of stability, we could almost say. Or we can have a mobility joint that is so strong and stable that it's actually negatively impacting on its ability to move and be mobile. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my notepad here, which will share screen with you, and I kind of want to draw for you guys kind of what that looks like and how it is to ensure that you're getting that right mix. So on the far left-hand side, we have stability, and on the far right-hand side, we have mobility, right? And each of our joints, depending on its category, which is what we just talked about, will sit along this spectrum. So say we want to be sitting, just for all intents and purposes, right here in the middle, but currently we have a lack of stability happening and we're all the way up here. The question we should be asking ourselves is, how do I move down this way? How do I take a hypermobile or an extremely mobile or flexible joint and make it more stable? Well, the answer is actually really quite simple. We strengthen our muscles, because what we find oftentimes, if a joint is too mobile, we usually have a lack of strength, or our muscles are actually too flexible. So what we're actually trying to do is increase tone, which I know is not the same thing as flexibility, tone, but it may be an increase in tone that we're looking for, or it may be just an increase of actual tightness, which sounds really funny because a lot of people oftentimes have a lack of mobility in their mobility joints. The other kind of thing that we can find and often find in high-level athletes is we have a lack of mobility. So what we're trying to do is actually take this stable joint, which is rock solid in our hips and really strong. So, you know, if we get smashed under load, we can cope with it. However, the lack of mobility in our hips is impacting on our performance, or is actually meaning that the stability joint is having to be more mobile to compensate. So that also is a really bad thing to have happen to us. So the way that we can improve on stability is actually through flexibility of muscles is one part of the equation. Or the other kind of component of the question is a joint mobility as well, right? So what we're looking at there is capsule tightness. So that each of our capsules have a level of adhesion, and that has to do with how the bone is sitting within its capsule, how much pressure we have that's built up in that capsule, so capsular pressure. And funnily enough, there are these mobility exercises that we can work on, like what's an example? There's a shoulder one that I can't quite think of right now, but that kind of works to decrease the actual capsular pressure. Which is, it may seem like a flexibility joint, but it'll flexibility exercise or a stretch, but it will actually feel very, very different. The other way that we can kind of help this as well is by decreasing our protection mechanisms. So oftentimes we see a increase in stability due to a combination of activations of muscles that are trying to protect you against being quite mobile because it sees it as being threatened. So what we can do, like sitting into a deep squat position, but allowing our body to relax and actually feel comfortable and adequate to be able to sit in that position is really quite nice. To be able to do mobility or movement pieces towards the end range is really important. To do our strengthening exercises through full range of motion, so getting some sort of stretch response in when we're doing our actual strength exercise is also crazy helpful in regards to increasing our mobility. But what I wanted to take us through is that there is actually these, I'm going to stop the screen and come back to you now, is that it's really important for us to kind of understand that these things happen within our joints, and each joint is designed for each particular reason, and we should have a combination of stability and mobility. We want to have a strong level of stability in our joint, otherwise we get hypermobile and increase our risk of injury. But likewise, funnily enough, we get the same thing on the other end of the spectrum. If things are too mobile, I just talked about it. If we're too stable, we lack the ability to move adequately and properly. So we compensate through having to be more mobile through other joints, which again leads to incredible amounts of risk of injury. It's oftentimes what we look at when we get knee issues. It's not actually usually a knee problem that makes these injuries occur in the knee. Oftentimes it's either a poor movement pattern or the lack of ability to move properly through our hips and our ankles. So I hope that's become really quite valuable information for you guys. I hope you look and start to assess the way that you are exercising and the way that you're moving, and start to think and look internally into your body and the different joints and what they're designed for, and make sure that when you do your exercises, you understand what the ultimate result is that you're looking for. To assess these things is crazy important, and to ensure that you're getting the most out of each of these kind of joints is crazy important too. If you're wanting a quick breakdown or a quick cheat sheet to this, you can quickly and easily just Google joints categorization in the body, or mobility versus stability joints in Google Images, and oftentimes it'll be a nice little recap of what the joints are designed for, which can obviously help you make the decision on how you're going to treat your exercises around those muscle parts, those body parts, sorry. So I hope that's been helpful. It's certainly something that I educate my clients on a lot, because it's an issue that we see time and time again. But yeah, anyway, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And until next time, my friends, stay safe, look after one another, and I will talk to you again really soon. Cheers, guys.